So guys, welcome back to my channel. I had a few requests on posting up a star trail picture of how to actually get this effect with photography. This is a very quick video, no means an astronomy expert on here, but just you might find it useful if you're looking to capture something like this. So what I'm going to do is just show you the walkthrough of setting up the camera, and then we'll go inside with the photos and basically set up the software to do a time lapse and to do the star trail effect. So let's get to it. Okay guys, so we're going to have a talk about setting the camera up first, and as you can see it's actually not quite dark here yet, but I didn't want to be sitting out here with a torch trying to explain this to you, so hence why we've still got some light. But to be honest, it's not too bad to have an idea of the composition that you want to set up before you shoot the stars at night, especially if you're doing a star trail, because you need to find the North Star to get the stars to actually rotate around that, especially if you want to get an image with the complete rotation like this one. So the easiest way to find the North Star is to locate the plough, which is the saucepan star, which is in the northern hemisphere, and then the front of the saucepan, if you follow the two stars joining line, it will take you all the way down to the North Star, or the pole star as it's also called. So that's really what you want to be in the centre of your image. So setting up a composition for a star trail, I think it's always nice to have something in the foreground. And obviously on lockdown we're a bit limited to, as I am here in my back garden, what we can actually shoot there. So otherwise it'd be nice to have a nice windmill or some ruin or a building in front of it, and then you can do it from there. But so this is purely just about getting the star trail from wherever you happen to be in the world, as long as it's dark enough and you've got a view to the north from your garden. So the basics that you need to do this is obviously a camera and a lens, which is capable of certainly a f4 and f2.8 aperture on the camera. It doesn't matter if it's full frame or APS-C, but you will need a tripod. As you can see, I've got one just down here, and also you will need a remote trigger release. This one's a Canon one, which was about £10 I believe, so they're very cheap, and basically what it has on there is the option to push the button to half press for focus, push all the way down. You can use it for a single photo, and if you push it all the way down and push it forward, it locks it into place, which is what you're going to need to do if you're leaving your camera for any length of time shooting the stars. So let's get down to the camera itself. What are the settings that you need? That's a few questions that I had asked from me on what the best settings for this. As I say, I'm no expert in the sense of doing astrophotography as such, but to get a decent shot, these settings seem to work quite well. So as far as the camera setup goes, you want to get a lens that can go quite wide. The one I shot was a 15mm, but I've also got some nice shots up to 35mm, so anywhere in that bracket is going to be absolutely spot on for you. So the other thing we need to consider on the camera is setting up continuous shooting, so that when we arm the remote control, the camera is just going to keep cycling through and keep firing one after the other for the specified time. If we have it on one shot and not continuous, it's going to fire one shot and that's it, and then you've waited 2 hours and you'll come back to your camera with only one shot on it. So just make sure you do have that. The other thing I found works quite nicely is if you set your white balance to tungsten, it just seems to bring out the stars and the sky a little bit better than just using it on the standard auto white balance. So maybe something worth giving a try, and maybe experiment with that to see how you get on with it. So the next thing we need to look at is the f-stop of the camera. Now basically what we want is the f-stop to be as low as possible on there. So if you can get down to 2.8 or f4 on your lens, then you're going to be fine. We want it open as big as possible, so it lets as much light in as possible on there. Other bits to consider when we're setting up, and all this can obviously be done before we go outside into the darkness, because obviously it's a little bit harder unless you've got a torch with you to set the camera up and fiddle around with settings in the dark without ruining your night vision. So these sort of settings we can do before we venture out into the evening. Other things to mention is image stabilisation needs to be turned off. Because the camera's on a tripod, the image stabilisation is going to go against the stillness of the camera and give you a little bit of shake in there. Probably very small, but it can still make a difference to your shot. And then as far as focus goes, we need to set the focus into manual mode, and then we're going to manually set the focus to the infinity point. Now, a lot of cameras have the infinity point built into the scale, so you should just be able to select it, and it's basically like a figure of 8 on its side, which is the infinity mark. If you set your focus to there, it saves you having to take a shot of something in the distance to check that. Certainly on Canons they have it, and I believe on Fuji's as well, which I've shot with before. Basically what infinity does, it means your lens is going to focus far away in the distance and get the best sharpness from the stars. So the second part of the exposure trial we need to look at is the shutter speed. Now, there are calculations out there that you can do to find the precise exposure time for your camera, and if you've got a shutter release with a timer on it, then you can be more precise. Basically you want the exposure not to be too long, otherwise you tend to get the stars moving in your shot, obviously, as the Earth rotates. So I tend to use about between 15 and 20 seconds for my shots, and it seems to work quite nicely. Maybe if you've got information on these calculations, you can put them in the comments below for other people to have a look at. Now, obviously with star trails and doing the time-lapse photography, it's not really an issue because we want the movement in it anyway, so you could go all the way up to 30 seconds for this, and it's not going to cause you too much of an issue. Last part of the triangle is going to be the ISO, and this we're going to adjust to adjust our exposure on there. So I tend to start at 3200, and then I will bring it down, take a few test shots on there until the exposure looks right in there. So depending on your camera, you're all going to have slightly different shots, and that's the bit that you need to do a couple of test shots before. So once you've done these test shots, check your composition, check that what you've got is what you would like in your shot. Make sure you've got the pole star in the frame so that you can get the spinning disc around it, or maybe in one corner if you just want, but that's obviously down to you and what you're trying to achieve from the photo. Other things just to check before you set the camera running: make sure you've got full battery, because you don't want to get half an hour into it and then find that your battery's gone and you're not with your camera. Also make sure your memory card is got plenty of space on it. Make sure you're in the continuous shooting mode, as I mentioned earlier, and then pretty much you're ready to go. So once we've set it up on the camera, we've put all the settings into it, we will use our remote trigger and we will push it in, slide it forward so that the camera will then start its time of shooting the photos. Now, for the time lapse and the star trail that I've done here, it was approximately 2 hours that I left the camera running for on there. So when looking to work out roughly how many shots you're going to get, you're going to do, for 20-second exposure, you're going to do 3 shots in 1 minute. So leaving it for 2 hours, it's going to be 3 times 120. So you're going to be around about 360 shots. Now I did 310 for mine, which was around about an hour and 40 minutes, which seemed to work out quite nicely there. And obviously that time constraint is dependent where you are and how late you want to stay up at night taking these shots. So that's pretty much it. That's a run through of all the settings that we need to run on the camera. So we've set everything up on there and we're ready to take the shot once it gets dark enough. We've got clear skies, and then we can set the camera going and return back after the time's up, and we can then take all of those JPEG and RAW files, which I'm shooting both on this camera, just as a backup. And then once we've got those photos, we'll head over to the computer, we'll load the images up. I'll show you how to take the JPEG straight into doing the star trails, and also how to import the raw images into Lightroom, make edits, and then we'll save them all out, and then I'll show you how to put those into a time lapse as well. So nothing else to say at the moment. We're just going to wait for the skies to get dark. We'll set our camera running, and then I'll see you back in the office next to the computer. So good luck with your shooting. So in part 2 we'll complete the process of the star trail and the time lapse. So subscribe to the channel, hit the like button if you enjoy it. We'll see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.